She stepped out of her luxury car before dawn and returned as someone else entirely. By the time the city woke, the billionaire grandmother had vanished, replaced by a beggar no one looked twice at. This was not a game, it was a test, and the future of her grandson's happiness depended on who would show kindness when there was nothing to gain. The street was still half asleep when she arrived. A thin mist hung over Lagos like a forgotten prayer. The gutters were quiet. The buses had not started shouting yet. Only the early call to prayer floated from a distant mosque, and a few traders were already lifting their goods as if they were lifting their destinies. She parked in a dark corner where even streetlights looked away. In that car sat a woman the newspapers called Mama Esi Adaeze, widow, property queen, founder of a real estate empire, a grandmother with a name that opened doors before she knocked. But the city would not see Mama Esi today. Today, she became Iya Alaro, a beggar woman in a faded wrapper with a headscarf that had seen too many hot suns and slippers that slapped the ground like tired hands. She moved carefully, not because she was weak, but because she had learned something age teaches well. When you want to see people clearly, you must disappear from their expectations. She did not come with bodyguards. She did not come with a driver. She came with one small nylon bag, a bottle of water, a little cash folded in a corner, and a heart heavy with worry. Because her grandson, Kelechi and Adaeze, had everything a young man could want, and yet he had nothing he truly needed. Kelechi was 32, tall, clean, always dressed like his life was a board meeting. He was the CEO of the family company now, after Mama Esi had stepped back. People praised him. People feared him. People flattered him until their tongues grew tired. And still, when he came home at night, the house felt like a big, quiet cage. He had been engaged twice. Both times the women smiled the kind of smile that did not reach the heart. Both times their families spoke about legacy, access, and connections more than they spoke about love. And both times, Mama Esi had watched her grandson's eyes lose light slowly, like a lamp running out of oil. One night, he had spoken without looking at her. "Grandma," he said, "I'm tired." "Tired of work?" she asked gently. "Tired of people," he replied. He poured himself a drink, then didn't touch it. "They love the Adaeze name. I don't think they love me." Mama Esi had looked at him for a long time. Then she asked the question she had been afraid to ask. "If you lost everything tomorrow, who would still call you by your name with warmth?" He didn't answer. That silence became her decision. And now, before dawn, she sat by the roadside near a busy junction where people always passed but rarely saw. She chose that place because it was honest, not the kind of honest you find in church microphones, the kind you find in how people treat those who cannot repay them. A hawker arranging bread saw her and looked away. A man washing his taxi glanced at her and muttered, "This city is full of beggars." A woman with a plastic bucket walked past and tightened her wrapper as if kindness could be stolen. Mama Esi lowered her head, not because she was ashamed, but because she was listening. Every city has a language. Lagos spoke loudly, but beneath the noise, it whispered truth. As the sky began to soften, the city awoke fully. Engines roared, conductors shouted, footsteps multiplied, and with the morning came people of all kinds, some with open faces, many with closed hearts. Mama Esi stretched out her hand gently. "Please," she said, using a voice she had not used in years, "please help me." Some did not hear. Some pretended not to hear. One man dropped a coin without looking, like he was dropping guilt. A young couple walked past and laughing, and the girl said, "Don't touch her. You don't know what she has." Mama Esi kept her head down. The test had begun. Then she saw him. He came out of a black SUV that rolled into the junction like it owned the air. The windows were tinted. The driver stepped out first, opening the door with quick respect. Kelechi and Adaeze, her grandson. He adjusted his cufflink, checked his watch, and spoke into his phone. "Yes," he said, voice calm, sharp. "Tell them I will not accept excuses." He walked like a man whose time was more valuable than other people's lives. Mama Esi's heart squeezed in her chest.
She had raised him with love. She had given him education, confidence, opportunity. But the city had added something else to him, something cold. She watched him approach the junction, still on the phone. A security man stood behind him, scanning the area. Kelechi did not look at the ground. He did not look at the people. He looked only forward, like someone walking toward a future made of numbers. Mama Esi lifted her hand. "Please, my son," she called softly. Kelechi paused, annoyed, not because of her voice, but because something dared to interrupt him. He turned slightly, eyes landing on her like a glance at trash. "Madam," he said without warmth, "I don't have time." And he turned back to his call. Mama Esi felt pain, not because she had been rejected, but because the rejection came from someone she loved. Still, she did not move. A test is not a test if it ends at the first discomfort. She followed slowly as he crossed toward a nearby cafe where he often stopped to pick coffee before heading to the office. He stood outside, waiting for the barista to finish his order. Mama Esi sat near the cafe entrance, on the low ledge. People stepped around her like she was part of the pavement. She watched her grandson laugh lightly at something on his phone. Not a real laugh, a convenient one. Then the barista called his name, "Mr. Adaeze." Kelechi took his coffee and turned. His eyes landed on Mama Esi again. Her hand lifted. "Please," she whispered. This time his face hardened. He reached into his pocket with irritated speed, pulled out a note and tossed it toward her without looking. The note fell on the ground, not in her hand, on the dirty pavement. Mama Esi stared at it. This, she thought, was what wealth could do to a heart if a person was not careful. Kelechi stepped away, but a small thing happened then, something that looked insignificant but carried weight. A young woman carrying a tray of chin-chin saw the note fall. She paused. She did not hesitate like someone calculating. She bent down, picked the note, dusted it gently, and placed it in Mama Esi's hand. "Ma," she said softly, "don't let it touch the ground. It is still money." Mama Esi looked up. The young woman's face was simple and beautiful in a quiet way. No loud makeup, no flashy confidence, just a calm presence. Her clothes were neat but modest. A plain blouse, a simple skirt, and slippers that had walked more than they had rested. Her eyes held something rare in the city, attention. "Thank you," Mama Esi said, voice trembling. The young woman nodded. Then she did another thing. She reached into her pocket and added 2 small notes to Mama Esi's palm. "Take," she said. "It's not much." "You don't know me," Mama Esi said. "I know you are hungry," the young woman replied simply. Then she walked away to continue selling. Mama Esi's chest warmed. Her name, she later learned, was Adaeze, and in that small moment a door opened quietly in Mama Esi's mind. Not a door of romance, a door of hope, because kindness like that did not come from desperation to impress. It came from something deeper. And Mama Esi thought, if my grandson meets a heart like this, he might finally come home to himself. But the test was not finished. Kindness is easy when no one notices. The real test is kindness when it costs you. Mama Esi decided to follow Adaeze's world, not as a spy full of pride, as a grandmother hungry for truth. That afternoon, Mama Esi moved toward the market where Adaeze sold most days. It was a market full of life, voices, spices, dust, laughter, bargaining. Adaeze stood near a corner, arranging her snacks carefully like someone who respected even small things. Mama Esi watched from a distance. Some customers bought and smiled. Some bought and insulted her price. One man tried to touch her hand unnecessarily. Adaeze pulled away without drama, her face firm but not loud. She did not fight, she did not flirt. She simply kept her dignity. A woman nearby shouted, "Adaeze, your rent is due tomorrow, oh?" Adaeze forced a small smile. "I know, Auntie." Mama Esi noted that. Rent. Pressure. The city never allowed the poor to breathe too long.
As evening approached, rain threatened.
The sky darkened. The market began to pack up. Adaeze gathered her tray and started walking. Mama Esi followed slowly, keeping distance. Adaeze walked into a compound of old buildings where paint had given up long ago. Children played with a flat football. A generator coughed. Adaeze greeted people with respect. When she reached her room, she opened the door carefully, as if even the door deserved gentleness. Mama Esi sat outside on a broken bench nearby, pretending to rest. Then she saw it. Adaeze did not go inside and relax. She entered, dropped her tray, and came back out with a small container. She walked to the far corner of the compound where an old man sat alone, legs stretched, eyes blank with tiredness. "Baba Kunle," Adaeze said, kneeling beside him. "Have you eaten?" The old man shook his head slowly. Adaeze opened the container and fed him small bites. Mama Esi felt her throat tighten. It wasn't only kindness, it was consistency. The kind of kindness that became a habit, not a show. The old man ate slowly. "God will bless you, my daughter," he whispered. Adaeze smiled. "I am not feeding you because of blessing, Baba," she said. "I'm feeding you because you are human." Mama Esi closed her eyes briefly. In a city that trained people to be hard, this young woman had remained soft without becoming weak. That night, Mama Esi returns to her hidden car and sat inside. Her body ached. Her pride had been pressed, but her spirit felt clearer. She took out her phone and called someone. It was her lawyer, Mr. Adeyemi. "Sir," she said, "I need you to do something." "Ma," he replied quickly, "anything." "I want you to watch my grandson," she said, "not with gossip, with truth." There was a pause. "Sir, you mean—" "Yes," she said. "I want to know how he treats people when no one is praising him." She ended the call. Then she whispered into the quiet car, "Tomorrow the test continues." The next morning, Mama Esi returned to the junction. She took her place again. She wore the same faded wrapper. She carried the same tired posture, but her eyes were sharp. Kelechi arrived again, same black SUV, same clean suit, same serious face. He was late this time. His phone pressed to his ear, his voice slightly raised. "No, we are not negotiating. If they can't meet the deadline, replace them." Mama Esi watched him. The city had turned her grandson into a man who thought humans were replaceable like office chairs. He walked toward the cafe again. Mama Esi lifted her hand. "Please, my son," she said. Kelechi didn't stop this time. He didn't even look. He walked past as if she was air. But Adaeze was there again, selling near the cafe. She saw Mama Esi, and without hesitation she came over. "Ma," she said softly, "are you okay?" Mama Esi nodded. "God bless you," Mama Esi murmured. Adaeze looked at the cafe entrance, then back at Mama Esi. Then she did something that surprised Mama Esi. She stood up and walked toward Kelechi. "Sir, excuse me," Adaeze said politely. Kelechi turned, irritated. "Yes?" Adaeze pointed gently toward Mama Esi. "That old woman has been here since before dawn. She is not asking you for much. Even if you don't want to give money, you can speak to her like a human being." The air froze for a moment. People nearby pretended not to listen, but their ears were wide. Kelechi stared at Adaeze like she had insulted his ancestors. "Do you know who I am?" he asked, voice low. Adaeze nodded once. "I know you are a man, and that should be enough." Kelechi's jaw tightened. He stepped closer, towering. "Do you want to teach me manners?" he said. Adaeze's face stayed calm. "I am not teaching you," she replied calmly. "I am reminding you." Kelechi looked around and saw eyes. He saw attention. And like many powerful people, he hated being corrected in public more than he hated being wrong. He scoffed. "Mind your business," he said sharply. Adaeze's face stayed calm. "This is my business," she said, "because when we stop caring, this city becomes a jungle." Kelechi's eyes narrowed. Then he did what pride often does when it feels threatened. He struck.
Not with a hand, with power. He turned to his security man. "Get her name," he said. "Find out where she sells. I don't want her disturbing me here again." Adaeze blinked. Mama Esi felt a coldness move through her stomach. This was worse than rudeness. This was cruelty, disguised as order. The security man stepped forward. Adaeze lifted her chin. "My name is Adaeze Nwosu," she said clearly, "and I sell here because people buy. If you want to stop me, you can stop hunger first." And Mama moved through the crowd. Kelechi's face darkened. He turned and walked away, coffee in hand, like he was walking away from a problem he could erase. Mama Esi stared at Adaeze with deep respect. But she also felt fear because she knew what her grandson could do when his ego was bruised. Later that day, Adaeze reached the market and found trouble waiting for her. 2 task force men stood near her spot. "Are you Adaeze?" one asked. "Yes," she replied carefully. "You are blocking the walkway," he said. "Pack your things." "But others sell here," she said, pointing. The man smiled without kindness. "You are the one we were told to move." Adaeze's heart sank. Mama Esi watched from a distance, her fists clenched inside her wrapper. So this was what Kelechi did. He used authority like a broom, sweeping away anyone who challenged him. Adaeze tried to reason. The men shoved her tray. Snacks scattered on the ground. Some people laughed. Some people looked away, ashamed. Adaeze bent down quickly, gathering what she could, eyes blinking back tears she refused to release. Mama Esi felt something rise in her. Anger. Not the loud kind, the dangerous, quiet kind. She almost stepped forward, almost revealed herself, almost ended the test there. But she stopped. Because the test was not only for Adaeze, it was for Kelechi. And perhaps for fate itself. That night, Adaeze sat in her room, counting her losses. Her landlord knocked. "Omomi," he said, "not cruel, but tired. Rent is tomorrow." Adaeze swallowed. "I know," she whispered. In the corner of the compound, Mama Esi sat as Ya Laro again, watching. Adaeze didn't have enough money. Not anymore. Not after the task force, not after the scattered tray. Mama Esi watched Adaeze open her small box of savings. It was almost empty. Adaeze covered her face briefly, then she stood up. She walked to Baba Kunle, and still she fed him. Mama Esi's eyes burned. This was the moral test in its purest form. Adaeze could have chosen herself. She could have said, "Today I cannot," but she chose love over survival. Not because she was foolish, because she was principled. And Mama Esi knew then, this is the kind of woman a lonely man needs. Not one who takes, but one who gives without losing herself. The next move had to be careful. If Mama Esi simply ordered Kelechi to marry Adaeze, it would become a transaction, and love does not grow under commands. So, Mama Esi set a trap, not of evil, but of truth. 2 days later, Kelechi attended a high-class charity event at a luxury hotel. Cameras flashed, people smiled, speeches floated in the air like perfume. Kelechi donated a huge sum publicly and received applause. Mama Esi watched from the back of the hall. Not as Ya Laro, as herself, in gold lace, coral beads, head held high. Kelechi saw her and relaxed slightly. "Grandma," he said warmly, kissing her cheek. It was the warmest his voice had sounded in weeks. Mama Esi smiled gently. "You are generous," she said. Kelechi smiled with pride. "You taught me," he replied. Mama Esi held his gaze. "Did I?" she asked softly. He frowned. "What do you mean?" She didn't answer. Instead, she looked around the hall. "We are raising money for the street children." "Good,"
she said. "Yes," Kelechi replied quickly. "It's important." Mama Esi nodded. Then she leaned closer. "Tomorrow," she said quietly, "I want you to come with me." Kelechi blinked. "Where?" "To see something," she said. Kelechi hesitated. His schedule was always full, but he respected his grandmother. "All right," he said. "Tomorrow." The next day, before dawn, Mama Esi met Kelechi outside his house. He came out, dressed casually, but still expensive. Clean sneakers, branded hoodie, smelling like money. His driver stood ready. Mama Esi shook her head. "Not today," she said. Kelechi looked surprised. "Grandma." "No driver," she repeated. "Just you and me." Kelechi sighed, confused but obedient. They drove in silence. The city slowly woke around them. Mama Esi directed him to the junction near the cafe.
Kelechi's face tightened as he recognized it. "Why are we here?" he asked. Mama Esi looked at him calmly. "Park," she said. He parked. Mama Esi stepped out. Then she did something that made Kelechi's body stiffen with shock. She walked to the corner, toward where the beggar usually sat. But today, that beggar was already there. Iyalaro, faded wrapper, headscarf, tired slippers. Mama Isi's disguise. Kelechi stared, confused. Then he looked at his grandmother beside him and at the beggar. His brain refused to accept what his eyes were showing him. Mama Esi turned to him. "I want you to watch," she said quietly. "Grandma, what is—" "Watch," she repeated. Kelechi's face grew pale. Mama Esi stepped away, walking toward the beggar. But as she moved, she removed her gaze slowly, as if removing an old truth. Under it was the same face, the same eyes, the same dignity. The beggar stood straight. The luxury grandmother stood straight. And in that moment, Kelechi realized there had never been two women, only one. His throat went dry. "Grandma," he whispered, voice breaking. Mama Esi looked at him with deep sadness, not anger, just sadness. "Did you know," she asked softly, "that I wore rags and your eyes became blind?" Kelechi shook his head slowly. No, I didn't know." Mama Esi nodded. "I know," she said. "That was the problem. You didn't know because you no longer look." Kelechi swallowed, shame rising like heat. Mama Esi turned slightly and pointed. "Do you see that young woman over there?" Kelechi followed her finger. Adaeze was nearby, tray in hand, preparing for another day. She looked tired, but steady. Mama Esi watched Kelechi's face change as he recognized her. "She is the one you punished," Mama Esi said quietly. Kelechi's eyes widened. "I didn't—" "You did," Mama Esi interrupted gently. "You with your words and your power. You pushed task force men toward her. You made her lose her goods." Kelechi's voice cracked. "She embarrassed me." Mama Isi's eyes held him firmly. "And you needed to destroy her for that?" she asked. Kelechi lowered his head. Silence stretched. Cars passed. Morning shouted. Life continued. But inside Kelechi, something broke softly. Mama Esi stepped closer. "My son," she said, "I did not become rich by trampling people. I became rich by understanding people." Kelechi blinked hard, fighting emotion. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Mama Esi nodded. "Sorry is a beginning, but change is the proof." She turned toward Adaeze and began walking.
Kelechi followed, heart pounding. Adaeze noticed them and stiffened. Her eyes flashed with memory, humiliation, loss, insult. She started to step back. Mama Esi raised a calm hand. "My daughter," she said, "please don't run." Adaeze froze, smiled gently. "Yes," she said, "and also Mama Esi Adebisi." Adaeze's breath caught. Her knees nearly buckled. "Ma," she stammered. Kelechi stepped forward, voice low. "Adaeze," he said. Adaeze looked at him, and her eyes did not soften. They held him accountable. Kelechi swallowed. "I wronged you," he said, "and I can't excuse it." Adaeze's hands shook slightly around her tray. "You nearly ruined my life," she said quietly. Kelechi nodded once. "I know," he whispered, "and I'm sorry." Mama Esi watched the exchange carefully. Then she said something that shifted everything. "Adaeze," she said, "I did not come to beg money." Adaeze blinked. "I came to beg for truth," Mama Esi continued, "because my grandson is surrounded by people who smile at wealth and hate humility." Adaeze's eyes flickered with confusion. Mama Esi's voice softened. "I saw the way you picked money from the ground and placed it in my hand like I mattered. I saw the way you fed an old man even when your rent was due." Adaeze's eyes watered, but she quickly wiped them. Mama Esi nodded. "You have a heart that is not for sale," she said. "That is rare." Kelechi looked at Adaeze as if seeing her fully for the first time, not as a nuisance, not as a poor girl, as a person. But Adieze's voice came steady. "Ma," she said, "I respect you, but I don't want trouble." Mama Esi smiled sadly. "Trouble has already found you, but you did not become trouble back." Adaeze looked away, struggling. Kelechi stepped forward carefully. "I don't expect you to forgive me today, but I want to repair what I broke." Adaeze gave a small laugh that held no joy. "Repair?" she asked. "With money?" Kelechi hesitated. Then he said something unexpected. "No," he said, "with humility." Mama Esi watched her grandson closely. Words could be easy, but this sounded different. Kelechi reached into his pocket and pulled out cash. Adaeze flinched, but he did not offer it to her. Instead, he knelt down slowly and began picking up some of her fallen chin-chin that had spilled from the tray edge. Adaeze gasped. People nearby turned, surprised. Kelechi picked them carefully, dusting them gently. He looked up at her. "I don't know how to be small," he admitted, "but I want to learn." Adaeze stared at him, torn between anger and disbelief. Mama Esi's eyes softened. The turning point had arrived. Not the kind of turning point where everyone hugs immediately, the kind where pride finally cracks and the heart gets air again. That day, Kelechi did something he had not done in a long time. He walked with Adaeze to the market, not in a convoy, not as a boss, as a man trying to understand the world outside his glass walls. He watched the way customers spoke to her. He watched the way hunger lived on people's faces. He saw the way small money could feel like a mountain to someone. Adaeze did not suddenly become friendly. She remained cautious. But Mama Esi noticed something. Whenever Kelechi helped someone, his shoulders loosened, like kindness was undoing a knot inside him. In the following weeks, Kelechi kept returning. He quietly paid for the old man's medical checkup. He apologized properly to the market association. He spoke to the task force supervisor and made sure no one harassed Adaeze again. But he did not announce it. He simply did it. And slowly, Adaeze's fear began to soften into curiosity. One evening, as the sun fell and the market quieted, Adaeze sat on a low stool, tired. Kelechi stood nearby, hands in pockets. "I didn't know people lived like this," he confessed softly. Adaeze looked at him. "Many people don't know, but not because they can't see, because they don't want to."
Kelechi swallowed. "I became like that," he said. Adaeze nodded. "Yes," she said. "You did." He looked at her with quiet pain. "Can I change?" he asked. Adaeze studied his face. Then she said, "Change is not a speech. It is a habit." Kelechi nodded slowly. "I will build the habit," he said. Time passed. The city kept moving, but something inside Kelechi shifted. He stopped speaking to staff like they were invisible. He began visiting his old secondary school quietly, funding scholarships without attaching his name loudly. Mama Esi watched, still cautious, still wise, because a man can act soft for a woman and still be hard inside. But as months passed, she saw consistency. Then came the hardest test of all. Kelechi's board discovered he was spending time in places beneath his status. They began whispering. A powerful investor's daughter, one of the women Mama Esi had rejected before, returned, ready to help him settle down. Her father offered partnerships. Her mother offered social connections. The board loved it. They invited Kelechi to a private dinner, pushing the plan gently but firmly. At the dinner, the investor smiled at Kelechi and said, "A man like you should not be distracted by street life." Kelechi's face tightened. "You mean people," he corrected. The woman laughed lightly. "You know what I mean." And the board chairman leaned in. "Kelechi," he said, "this company needs stability, a proper wife, a proper family." Kelechi looked around the table. He saw the old version of himself reflected in their eyes, cold, calculating, proud. He took a slow breath. "I will not marry for business," he said quietly. The table went silent. The chairman's voice sharpened. "Are you ready to lose investors over a foolish idea of love?" Kelechi's eyes lifted.
For the first time, I am ready to lose anything that costs me my humanity." The room stiffened. The investor's daughter's smile dropped. "This is madness," she snapped. Kelechi stood up. "No," he said calmly. "This is awakening." He walked out, and in that moment he chose love over wealth, because love had taught him humility, and humility had taught him freedom. But the city does not forgive such choices easily. Rumors spread. Some people said Kelechi had been bewitched. Some said his grandmother had lost control. Some said Adaeze was after money. Adaeze heard the rumors. They hurt. Not because she cared about strangers' tongues, but because she feared Kelechi might crumble under pressure and become cruel again. One night, she told him, "If you will regret this, let it end now." Kelechi looked at her quietly. "I already lived in regret," he said. "I don't want to go back." Adaeze studied him. Then she asked, "If your name was not Adaeze, would you still choose me?" Kelechi did not answer quickly. He sat down, thinking, like a man searching for something honest inside himself. Then he said, "If my name was not Adaeze, I would still choose the way you make me see people." Adaeze's eyes softened slightly. "Love is not only feeling, it is character." Kelechi nodded. "Yes," he whispered, "and you helped me find mine." Near the end of the year, Mama Esi held a small gathering. Not a loud wedding announcement, not a show. A simple family meeting. Adaeze came, nervous. She wore a modest lace dress, hair neatly braided, hands trembling. Kelechi stood beside her, steady. When Adaeze walked into the room, some relatives stared. One aunt whispered, "Is this the one?" Another cousin smirked, "So this is where our money is going." Adaeze heard it. Her eyes lowered. Mama Esi raised her hand slightly. The room fell silent. Mama Esi stood, regal, calm. Then she walked towards Adaeze. She took Adaeze's hands gently. "My daughter," she said, voice clear. "When I was disguised as a beggar, many people walked past me." Some relatives shifted uncomfortably. Mama Esi continued, "Some insulted me. Some threw money at me like feeding a dog." The room went still. She turned slightly, eyes scanning her family. "And my own grandson," she said, "failed that test at first." A small gasp.
Kelechi's face lowered in shame. Mama Esi tightened her grip on Adaeze's hands. "But this young woman," Mama Esi said, "did not walk past. She did not insult. She did not throw money like rubbish." Adaeze's eyes filled with tears. Mama Esi smiled softly. "She treated me like a human being," she said, "even when she had nothing to gain." Mama Esi turned to the room. "If anyone here thinks love is about status, you are free to leave this room, because the foundation of this family will not be pride, it will be character." No one moved. Mama Esi looked at Kelechi. "My son," she said gently, "what do you want?" Kelechi lifted his eyes. In them was humility and something like peace. "I want a home," he said, "not a trophy." Mama Esi nodded. Then she faced Adaeze. "My daughter," she asked softly, "do you still fear that you will be swallowed by this world?" Adaeze swallowed hard. "I fear it," she admitted, "but I also believe a person can change." Mama Esi smiled. "That is why you belong," she said, "not because of her poverty, not because of her beauty, because of her belief in goodness without blindness." And so, in a quiet but powerful way, the truth settled like morning light. The billionaire grandmother had pretended to be a beggar, not to play games, but to protect her grandson from a life of expensive loneliness. And Kelechi had found something money could not buy. Not just love, but a mirror that showed him who he had become and who he could still be. Later, when they finally married, it was not the kind of wedding that shook the whole internet. It was the kind that healed his soul. Mama Esi watched her grandson smile, truly smile for the first time in years, and she whispered to herself, "Now the wealth has meaning." Because wealth without love is a large house with no warmth. And love without character is a sweet song that ends in noise. Adaeze did not become arrogant because she entered money. She remained steady. And Kelechi did not remain hard because he remained powerful. He softened into strength. And that is why the elders say, the hand that gives when it has little will not poison itself when it has much. And the eyes that can see a beggar as human will never be blind to true love.